Hi, Debra Hamilton, and you're listening to the next episode of Why Do Pets Matter? Please like us, please give us 5 stars, let us know how we're doing. We love that we have such a great following. We really appreciate you. Today we're going to talk with Dr. Mark Bamberger. He's been on before, but this time he's talking about his new shift into environmental law from animal law per se, but he's dealing with animals and the environment because he is helping a group of breeders of prehistoric horses, very endangered horses, recover from an environmental injury that occurred with salmonella in the water they were drinking from a farm upstream from them. So I know you're going to love this. This is a great discussion. Can't wait for you to let me know how you feel. And so let's hear what Mark and I talked about now. Hi, everyone. Debra Hamilton, and you're on the Why Do Pets Matter podcast. Please like, please share, please give us a 5-star review because that's the way people are going to find us. And you know, you've really enjoyed these podcasts over the years. And I'm so glad you're here again. Today, we're talking to a prior guest who I love so much, I needed to have him back again, Dr. Mark Bamberger. He has decided to take a little bit of a semi-retirement pivot into complex environmental litigation, which I think is sort of an oxymoron. However, he is one of my dear friends, has been working in rescue and in animal law for many years, and now he's taking on the environment. Mark, thank you so much for being here.
Happy to be here.
I know. I love when you come because we always have such wonderful conversations. So, of course, we start with our first question, which you've already answered, but I know every time I interview someone, they say something a little bit different. So why do pets matter to you, Mark?
Uh, I've had a pet, mostly dogs, since the age of 10. And recently in semi-retirement, as I think you know, as you can see from the motorcycle helmets above my shoulder there, long distance motorcycle touring is a love of mine, and my girlfriend has also gotten into it, and we have an older mini poodle, and we were talking about when she died that we would just be done with animals for a while. And then I was sitting out on my patio one day, smoking a cigar and reading, and I realized that my little poodle Dixie had been curled up, sleeping right against my hip for hours. And at that moment, I realized that I just couldn't be without dogs. We would find a way to put them on the motorcycles and take them with us. We would find pet sitters if need be, but dogs have just been such a core value in my life that I just couldn't see myself as I'm getting older, as we all are, living life without having a dog. And actually, we now have 3, and we can talk about that a little bit later.
Well, it's wonderful, and I'm a big proponent of everyone keeping dogs in their lives because they're the thing that make us get out of bed in the morning. They're the things that help us go to sleep at night. They might not be our whole life, but they definitely make our lives whole. And if you make a plan for them, then, you know, being able to keep them forever and knowing they will have a soft landing if something happens to you. I mean, something could happen to you when you're 30. So you should always have a plan for
Yeah.
your pets no matter what. So
Yeah.
now you're into environmental law. So I probably should have asked you, why does the environment matter to you, Mark?
Well, I don't know that there's honestly been a day in my life after maybe the age of 4 or 5 that the environment has not mattered. I've always been a militant advocate for protection of the environment. I've worked for several EPAs in litigation matters and site inspections when I was in Connecticut, enforcement in Ohio, monitoring groundwater, the expertise. Before I got in law, I got a PhD in geology, and my specialty was hazardous waste, groundwater contamination. Um, and so even before I got into to animal law and law at all, I was doing what I could to protect the environment. Just because geologically we are going through a climate change that is undoubtedly caused by human factors. Yet, the Earth has cooled and has warmed hundreds and hundreds of times, but not at this rate. And the changes are leading to significant modifications of our environment. It remains to be seen, honestly, if human beings can ultimately adapt and micro evolve fast enough. The fastest growing wings of most hospitals now are the asthma wings because our respiratory systems are just having increasing problems dealing with the environmental changes. So I care about my life, but I care more about what my three daughters are going to have to deal with. And so far, my four grandchildren are I'm going to have to deal with. So and I have always made a direct link between animal law and environmental law.
Yeah, they are absolutely inextricably linked.
Yeah, and now animal law certainly here in Ohio is a niche market. There are maybe four or five of us in the entire state that bill ourselves as being animal law litigators. I'm turning down cases every week from folks that want to sue their vets or their neighbors, and in fact, more and more, I'm sending those cases to you
I
because
know. And we're
because
working on them, and it's interesting to find that they are taking a breath and maybe thinking about something other than litigation, which I am grateful for, because as we are shifting everyone's view about how to protect the environment, shifting everyone's view on possibly finding a way together to solve animal law issues and disagreements, could be something that's in the future as well, and really support everything you do.
Sure, sure. And fact of the matter is, I've done a lot of civil litigation, a lot of criminal defense, a lot of divorce and custody work, but you rarely find people that are more impassioned and emotional when it comes to an animal law case. And everybody wants to sue, and my I've learned the hard way when I was younger that suing is often a sign of failure. And
The animal,
me,
for the animal.
well, absolutely. And mediation and accord and satisfaction and getting, some sense of closure. In many instances, of course, as you know, Deb, I mean, the animal is gone, and it's just the raw emotions that are left. And those of us who are passionate about our animals, when they die, it's like a family member. It's like a child has died. A lot of
It's
folks don't get that, but
I know, and it's whether or not someone can sit there with them in their grief and sadness, which I know you do, and enable them to really foster what usually brings them to our offices is they don't want this to happen to anybody else again. Yes, they want their pound of flesh for the dog that was
right,
lost, or the cat, or the
right,
horse,
right.
but they really don't want it to happen again to somebody else. And if we can work on that paradigm shift, so we can change the future of how things are treated, that can sometimes be more impactful. I always tell veterinarians when I work on mediations, I say, let the party know what you've done to make sure it never happens again. And they go, why would I do that? And I said, because that will
Mm,
give them peace of mind that their dog, cat, bird, horse didn't die in vain, that you
yeah.
recognize that a mistake was made and you've put into place as best you can, safeguards that it won't happen again. So you've pivoted a little to environmental law because you have had a little bit of a run-in with that long COVID.
Yeah, it's been, and we discussed that at the last podcast. I actually, with my former girlfriend who rides motorcycles as well, we actually rode down to Daytona Bike Week in March of 2020. By the time we got to Key West, she had lost her sense of
Mel.
smell, followed by her sense of taste. Now, I always like to add that the fact that she was dating me shows that she didn't have that much taste anyway, but she lost what was left of it. And we rode back home. We were going to go through New Orleans, but it was after Mardi Gras, and they were shutting the town down. So we caught the northern third of the Natchez Trace, and then got back home. At which point she spiked a fever. My only symptom was I went to bed for 9 weeks. I
Wow.
literally felt like half the blood in my body was gone. There were 3 or 4 weeks where I slept 18 to 20 hours a day. Happily, at that time, all the courts in Ohio, as well as around the country, pretty much
Shut
had shut
down.
down and
Yeah.
were doing Zoom and virtual meetings. So I was able to pretty much keep that going, but went through the whole brain fog, hot spells, confusion, exhaustion. And unfortunately for me, it never went away. After cardio tests and pulmonary tests, they found that it had caused pulmonary hypertension, which has affected my breathing. And I've tried, you know, many different options,
Well,
in including um, Invectrin, which some folks have said, have some success. I really thought I did, but really haven't. So the bottom line is, it really forced me into semi-retirement. For more than a decade, I had my own firm. I had 40 cases open at, any one time, a lot of criminal defense, a lot of family law, contract law, civil litigation. And it forced me, Deb, to just sort of decide that I just couldn't keep up that type of schedule. It wasn't all bad because happily I was in a financial situation where I had done well enough through my two major careers that I had some money in the bank, and so I just decided that I would let things finish and end by themselves, and then I would begin to focus, as you said, on cases that I really enjoyed. Being a geologist in the first half of my career, and then wanting to go into environmental and animal law, and not really being able to do that a lot during my main career because it didn't pay a lot, because a lot of environmental law is handled by the major firms, of which I am not one. But now that I have time to think and time to really sort of accept the cases that I want, I've gotten involved in a couple really big, quite complex environmental cases, one pertaining to very rare Serbian horses down in Kentucky.
I know. I wanted to just ask about that because these Serbian horses, as you and I had talked about before we got on the podcast, are really the closest thing to prehistoric
Yeah.
horses that are available to us in the 21st century.
Yeah. Yeah, these are this is a genome project that has been around for about 30 years. The president and her mate, the president, are just experts when it comes to DNA cloning and breeding. They bought on land contract this farm about 100 acres down in central Tennessee, east of Lexington, and set up a project there. About starting in about 2019, they began to have some of their unique, semi-unique, almost priceless horses begin to die. And they did testing and found out that it was salmonella that was actually killing them. They looked upstream to their neighbor, and they found that there were carcasses of cows that they had just left to rot in the field. Not only is that against the law in Kentucky, uh, but the salmonella that formed from those carcasses is greater than a 90% match to the exact strain of salmonella that was killing these horses, and also prized Highland cattle that also have DNA
Access, right, and access to
going
this water.
back.
Yes, so
These are
oh my God.
these are animals that are acknowledged by the United Nations as being rare and valuable cultural artifacts.
And endangered.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. And other countries, and I can't go into the details because
Right.
they're
Yes,
very.
pending litigation, but at least everyone can know that this litigation is pending. And before I let you go, you're going to let us know where we can read more about them. So go ahead.
Yeah, sure. And um, so this case began actually back in 19. The first lawsuit was filed in 20. The second was filed, the amended lawsuit, I think, was filed in 22 before my legal team got involved. We jumped on just the end of 24 when the prior attorney just was not moving the case forward. Um, so in addition to that, relatives of the folks that own that farm also had two huskies that they let roam. Those huskies killed seven more horses, seven foals, little babies. And that is the second part of the lawsuit that we are pursuing. Unfortunately, we quite recently tried mediation. We should have gotten you, but both sides agreed, and the court knew an attorney very well known right in that area, and so everybody went with him. Neither mediation went well. It really wasn't the fault of the mediator. It was very obvious that neither family was interested, and unfortunately, that's how they've been for years. So, to talk about complex litigation, we are going to go to trial on both the contaminant case, which obviously is a very complicated scientific case. We are getting experts lined up who will testify, many of whom, honestly, voluntarily. They are vets from that area that are just sickened by what is happening and are volunteering their time. And also on the dog attack case. We're looking at probably more than a week of trial for the contaminant case and 3, 4 days for the
Dog attack.
and I'm doing this all on contingency,
Yeah.
which I would not be able to do back in the days when I was hustling and taking everything that came in the door. Uh, when I opened my practice, my own firm back in '09. So, that's one of the benefits of being in the situation that I am. I have another one that deals with a contaminant pond that we don't have to go into, but I'm doing that on a contingency too. And for the horse case, I'm the first chair. I'm the lead counsel of 4 attorneys that are representing the horses and trying to get justice and trying to, as you said before, trying to mandate changes in conditions so that this won't happen again.
And
Um,
hopefully, if you win, hopefully to effectuate what is decided once you win, hopefully you'll win. Um, I always profess that sometimes the parties are so mad at each other that they can't necessarily find the way forward, even though it's written in the order. And sometimes mediation helps in that too, because it lets everyone shake the woolies out and move forward together, which is important. In fact, I just returned from a congress, and I spoke to them and I said, mediation is good before, during, and after. I said because before maybe you don't
mhm.
have to litigate. During, maybe you can get rid of some of the things that you can agree on,
Yeah.
and after. You've burned every bridge you've ever known. So now you're going to have to rebuild relationship. And what better way to do that is mediation. I love this. And for me, the environmental piece is so key because water is sacred. And not only did it affect the horses, but I'm sure it affected the people living downstream from these people as well. Because, groundwater is if they live on wells. I mean, I lived in a community that was on well water, and somebody wanted to build the golf course above us.
Most
And
do.
we
There
fought
you go.
them. We fought them because our well water was downstream, down the rocky, you're a geologist, down the rocky path.
Yeah.
And because we were on top of a mountain. And, it took us a long way. I think our well was 900 feet deep. That's how far down our well was. Maybe that one wouldn't have been affected. Our neighbors were like 250.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah.
but you can't, water is so important. You can't just think that the scavenger animals will eat the bones dry and everything will go on hunky dory.
Right.
Unfortunately, that doesn't always happen, especially if this is an area that isn't necessarily populated by apex predators that eat the dead type of thing.
Well, that's true, and even if you do have a wolf or a coyote, the feces still is infected,
Yeah.
and
So they
the
carry it
whole
far and wide after they eat it. Great.
through soil, through feces, through water, and um, the point you make about the post litigation mediation. I know from knowing you for as long as I have, you've done some incredible mediation work, and um, many of these cases are civil,
Yeah.
meaning that you don't necessarily have the court help you get the money afterwards. And in fact, you usually don't. You have to certify the judgment. You then have to try to freeze assets, garnish wages and such, which many times fails, especially if you have a farmer who
Right.
hides his assets. So in some instances, yes, the jury might find for you, but post litigation mediation might say, okay, look, this is what the order was, but we will accept this.
Let's see how we
You know,
can work this out so that all of
and
us can enforce what the judgment was in a way that moves us forward positively. I mean, it's not the perfect world, but it's a better than where we are world kind of thing.
right. And, certainly for civil cases, which in this case can go on for 6 years. I mean, one thing I honestly liked about doing criminal work and family
You had
law
dates certain.
is it usually comes and goes. And,
Yeah.
most good Georgia judges don't allow those things to just sit
Yeah.
for years.
Most
Civil
state judges
litigation
don't.
can
Yes.
be, can
Forever.
be endless.
Yeah.
So mediation can be a wonderful way to sort of cut through that and say, look, instead of paying $100,000 to litigate this case, let's see if we can settle it for 20 or for 30 and move on.
Yeah. And
Absolutely.
put in place things that are going to make sure it doesn't happen again, because that's actually more important than the money. I mean, the money is meant to hurt because you've created this danger to these animals
Right,
and other
right,
animals. So we
right.
want, but what are you going to do to alleviate it? This is such a fascinating, and I'm so glad you're back into environmental law, because this is such a fascinating case. And the fact that these horses are so fragile and are endangered, how many of them survived their experience with this? Maybe they didn't drink the water, who knows? But how many do they have to go forward with?
They have about 30,
Oh, good.
including some new foals that have been added. The one problem is it's really just set this genomic project back by years,
Yeah,
because
your
one thing
gene
that they were
pool.
doing, I mean, they have Chief Joseph, um, Appaloosa breeds. They have Serbian breeds that literally trace their lineage back to Serbia, before Iran. Um, and they were able to separate and distinguish between the different breeds, keep them apart. Now, the vets have actually said that every horse has salmonella. The good news is that in many instances it is dormant, and there are ways to treat it in its dormancy.
Dormant stage.
The
Yeah.
first thing that the vet said is you need to let these horses be. You can't stress them. They can't be moved, because that is the easiest way to turn dormant into
Into
active.
active. Yeah.
So my folks have a very detailed treatment protocol, building separate buildings, a concrete pad to be able to separate the different groups, treating them 5 or 6 at a time. It's a 6 to 9 months uh, project, but they believe that they can go on. They can continue to clone and to breed these extremely rare breeds. And what has been one of the most difficult parts is how do you evaluate a semi unique, semi priceless animal?
Yeah.
They have come up with something in the range of like $1.5 million per horse. And that's based on international consultations. My clients are part of international boards, some tied to the United Nations, where these experts around the world get together and consult. And needless to say, my clients have lost some very lucrative grants because of this illness. And so, it's been financial challenge. It's affected both of their physical health. They're certainly happy to have it done, but if they don't get, a reasonable number to be able to continue, they're effectively done.
Yeah, because these horses now are carrying this forward. Is there a way to, if they alleviate it medically, say if they're treated in the dormancy and they're effectively medicated to remove the dormancy, does it pass on to their foals, or are they? I know this is really a little more in depth than usual, but it's just so. Being a breeder myself, we do a lot of health testing, and we want to make sure we don't pass anything on that if we can help it.
Yeah.
And so if they breed a horse that's dormant, or they clone a horse that's dormant, does it go with the egg and sperm?
Yeah, it does. And
So
uh,
depressing.
the best scenario is that they don't allow any more foaling. They treat everybody. They get
Clean bills of health.
negative outcomes, or negative results from all of them. At which point they can be moved. They can begin to foal again, have babies, and there is a point at which you're able to get beyond
Past
this.
it.
But
Yes, get beyond it.
it's a very extensive and of course costly
Expensive.
process.
Yeah.
I have done from my research that there are more than 2,400 strains of salmonella, and the exact strain that the horses have is the exact strain that the carcasses next door have. So,
It's very unlikely they got it from somewhere else.
it's pretty, even though, our concern was that we would be before a jury of the defendant's peers,
Yeah.
not the experts that we represent. And, how would we get a fair outcome? But optimistically, a number of the neighbors, the people around them that might also be affected by the groundwater, as you said, have stopped by and said, it's horrible what these folks have done. I hope you get justice. So I am, during Vadir, which is one of the things I love to do,
Which is
jury
jury
picking.
selection, questioning the jurors, right?
Yeah, I am optimistic that we could get a
Fair
civil
jury.
jury, and with the civil jury, the standard of proof is lower than, of course, for criminal. I think in Kentucky they might seat six, and you need to get four of the six or something like that. So the bar is lower.
Well,
Um,
I'm going to wish you the best of luck. And before we go, I know
yeah.
that you have two more additions to your household.
I do. Yeah, I said in the intro that I could never see myself without dogs, and motorcycling has become a big thing for us. But we actually took on two new mini poodle rescues. One is an older sort of grumbly boy who's like 14, 15, but still, oh, we're giving him his best life. And the other we told was 7. But if you look at all the torn paper by my
Maybe
desk,
7 months. They meant 7 months.
we think he's actually 7 months because he acts like a puppy, and we are it. My girlfriend is as much of a dog nut as I am, and we sort of envision someday having property with a half-acre fenced-in backyard and just going to the local pound and saying, "Yeah, we'll take them all."
Yeah, once the motorcycling stops, because the toy poodles are perfect. I mean, they're sort of like pocket puppies that you could put on the back of the motorcycle in a safe container with helmets and goggles, and they'd be ready to go, especially probably the 14-year-old.
We actually the poodle we've had, she has been on the bike a number of times, and she loves it.
Yeah.
We've got little goggles for her,
Yep.
and we've got a bag where she can go down to get out of the wind, or a little pocket that she can look out. And um, my girlfriend rides a Spider, which is the motorcycle that has the two wheels in front and one in back, which she loves, and she thinks that we can get two on that. I can get one behind me on my a Goldwing. We honestly almost got a fourth, but we decided, uh, we really don't want to be that tied to the house. So.
Right. And they're so mobile. I love them. And most dogs will fit into your life because all they want to do is live in the moment with you, and you want to live in the moment with them. So Mark, tell us a little bit more about where somebody might just go on the internet to learn more about these horses, maybe not about your case, but more about the horses.
Well, I'm thinking how much detail at this point I can
No,
really
just
give
Google
you.
Serbian horses. Would that be good? And then they could
That would
learn
be
more about it.
one. You could certainly Chief Joseph Appaloosas.
Appaloosas. Okay.
You can also look at the Celestial Horse Project. They have a website. Um, and yeah, there's a lot of interesting information. When I put together a mediation packet to get the mediator
Up to speed.
before we started, there was like pages just on the history alone, because we wanted to really sensitize him to the fact that we're not just talking horses. I mean, we're talking, you know,
Horses. We're
uh,
talking these really rare, um, prehistoric horses who deserve a little more care at this time to have
exactly.
them retained. So, Mark, if someone has an environmental issue they want you to look at, how can they get in touch with you?
Yeah, my email is Mark, Mark, at Bamberger Law, Bambergerlaw. I also have a very active website at bambergerlaw.com. They can find out what we are doing. They can contact me that way. I do consult. I honestly give a lot more free advice at this point than I should, but
You and
happily,
I both.
yes, I know that for a fact, Deb. So I love to talk about these issues, and as I slow down and enjoy life a little more, I hope to focus on animals as much as I can.
Well, thank you, Mark. And thank you, everyone, for listening to the next episode of Why Do Pets Matter? I am so grateful you are here. And Mark, of course, I can't wait to have you back in a few months, hopefully,
Good.
not years,
Yes.
to tell us how this came out and how the horses thrive. So until then, everyone, kiss your dog, your horse, your bird, your lizard, your cat, because as I said, they might not be our whole life, but they definitely make our lives whole. This is Debra
Absolutely.
Hamilton. Looking forward to see you on the next podcast. 10 years ago, with my iPhone and a script, I recorded the first episode of the Ultimate Pet Resolution Summit, which chatted with experts about conflicts over animals. Our conversations were intimate, honest, and illustrated how disagreements over animals occur and how those disagreements can reshape people's lives and relationships. In November 2019, I started Why Do Pets Matter, a new podcast that continued these informative discussions. I'm so excited to have you here with me, continuing my exploration into a more meaningful conversation about why pets matter to all of us. My guests and I will share ideas, stories, and experiences straight from the heart, unscripted and holistic. From the bravest moments to the most brokenhearted, we will explore how to resolve disagreements over animals differently. One thing I know for sure is I want to have more meaningful conversations that will help all of us unlock that deeply felt human-animal bond that drives the emotions of conflict.